What is going on? Today we're going to be talking about the Brisbane market and the rapid growth that's been continuing in 2022. A lot of the YouTube channels and media is talking about 2022 starting to wane in terms of the growth in the property market and fear around interest rates, and 2023 and 2024 seeing price decreases. I have chats with property investors every day of the week who talk to me and ask, "Hey Luke, should I hold off a year or two and potentially make a better property purchase?" Now, my opinion before we jump into today's article and discuss some of these data and topics around this Brisbane market growth is that if you have the capacity in terms of your savings and you've got a good deal in front of you that makes sense from a numbers point of view, then you should probably go ahead with that property purchase. Of course, timing is important, but if you've got a good deal and you've got the capacity and buffers in place, not Buffett's, not Warren Buffett's, buffers. If you've got the capacity and buffers in place, then making that property purchase is likely going to make sense for you as a deal. That's when Emily and I have taken those steps. I know I talk about Emily and I, people ask that as well. The reason is we're a team, so I always refer to Emily and I as a duo when we're making property purchases and decisions. So that's why I say that. Now, let's dive into this article and take a look a bit more around the Brisbane market and how some people are making crazy price and equity growth in their properties at the moment. So Brisbane homeowners making more than 20K per month. Brisbane property owners are making more than 23,000 a month while watching the grass grow. That's the amount. The current median value for dwellings across Greater Brisbane has increased in the past month. The median property price has broken $700,000 barrier at $706,000, which represents $23,000 increase per month. Now, Brisbane's obviously been catching up in terms of the property prices. Brisbane's been a steady market for the last 10 years, and it's really starting to have its run of growth, catching up towards Sydney and Melbourne. But a $706,000 price point is significantly less than those other capital cities. So Brisbane is still relatively affordable compared to those Sydney and Melbourne's, but it's our third largest capital city, and there's a lot of infrastructure and projects going on here with a view to the Olympic Games also in 2032. So let's read on. Houses continue to drive this growth, outperforming unit market on a month-to-month basis. The main differences between Brisbane and the larger capital cities relate to affordability, much tighter supply, and different demographic trends. There is no longer a synchronized and broader-based upswing across all markets. Now, I feel like this is becoming more common knowledge, is that Australia isn't one property market. There's markets within markets within markets. You know, Brisbane is a market in itself. Then each of the city councils like Logan, Moreton Bay, Brisbane City Council, they're their own markets. And then each of the suburbs, you know, we've got Coorparoo within the inner south of Brisbane versus Deception Bay, which is talked about a lot. You know, those are markets within markets. And so you've got to look at each suburb specifically and not just look at the macroeconomics of a Sydney versus a Brisbane versus a Melbourne when we're looking for property price trends. So this graph on screen here really maps the month to month from January 2020 to January 2022 in terms of percentage growth. And you can really see here that houses have kicked on a lot higher than units. This is really in Brisbane, and we've known in Brisbane for a long time that the unit market has had a bit of a glut, but there's still been some good growth there in the unit prices. Now, that's because units take a few years for the supply to come back on the market, and I expect there'll be another increase in supply in units that will probably fall in 2025 and 2026 as developers finish those big projects in the inner CBD locations. We're talking within 3 up to 4 kilometres from the CBD, in pockets like Buranda, South Bank, West End, those areas that have that high-rise areas. Also along Tenerife, there's been a lot of apartment buildings go up, and we see an excess of supply and then supply decrease and then an excess of supply as developments take a few years to come through the pipeline. Now, the first section here in this article is talking about moving north. I'm just going to zoom in a little bit for you guys. The main set of research and economics, Dr. Nicola Powell, has revealed that 26% of the property inquiries in Brisbane over the last quarter came from southern home hunters. The increased demand with a market already battling with very low supply is continuing to put pressure on prices. Auction clearance rates are still similar to the trends experienced in the lead up to Christmas, but a little lower than the auction clearance rates observed in October and November. Now, this is to be expected. People are still wanting to do that interstate migration up to Brisbane. We've got some great living, lifestyle, and job opportunities. And in terms of the pullback in clearance rates and auctions, we've definitely seen a little bit less heat in the market in the start of the new year in 2022 compared to that peak scenario around September, October last year. I feel like September and October was the peak across Australia in terms of the heat in the property market, and we're starting to see a little bit more supply, but definitely not a glut. There's still a lot of competition out here for properties, and so it's about finding the right deal and competing with those, whether you're an interstate migration person, an interstate investor, or a local investor looking to take advantage of the Brisbane market. Now let's talk about this next section, which is the prestige party rolls on. So Brisbane's prestige properties continue to lead the way. In 3 months to December 2021, the top 25% of values experienced 9% growth, up from 8.1% at the end of November, compared to 7.3% growth in the lowest 25% of property values across the city. What this simply means is the big expensive properties have seen stronger growth than cheaper properties in the Brisbane market. Now, this is typically common because the luxury properties do great when the economy's been booming and we've had a lot of cash flooding in, because everyone wants to live in those premium locations. But the inverse is true. When we go into recessionary times and the money supply decreases and there's more properties on the market, those luxury properties tend to fall in value a little bit more. So it's something to keep in mind that's following in line with our understanding of general economics. And not many of the investors I work with are buying in super luxury markets. For example, in Brisbane, the luxury market's going to be over a $1.5 million purchase price. And most of the investors I work with a price less than $1.5 million, between as low as $350 up to that kind of $1.3 million price range. To close this article out and the discussion we've had today, let's talk about the future of the Brisbane market. So there is an expectation that 2022 will remain strong and property price growth will continue in Brisbane. With so many buyers competing for such limited inventory, competition should continue to drive prices. Unless there is an unexpectedly large volume of new listings coming onto the market in the next few months, the trajectory for continued price growth remains unchanged. The headwinds that could cloud the future potential is interest rate hikes, a federal election, and tighter credit availability. So really what they're saying here is what we really expect is there's not a lot of supply on the market. Even though we've had a little bit of the heat come out of the competition, there's still not a lot of inventory available for people to buy. The big factors moving forward are going to be the federal election, the interest rate hikes, and any changes to the lending standards. But what we're finding is that people are preempting all of these things. So I don't think that there's going to be a big price drop in properties, even if there's an interest rate hike in 2022 or in 2023. I think the communication, the market, I shouldn't say marketing, the news and media and other economic property commentators have been talking about potential interest rate hikes. So everyone's factoring that in to potential prices now. So I feel like it's a wait and see game as to what happens in the property market over the short to mid-term. But for myself, I'm a fundamental investor. The reason Emily and I have established our portfolio in Brisbane was for two key reasons: because we saw the long-term trajectory of price growth and we could manage our value add projects here on a local basis. So I still hold to those fundamentals. I believe Brisbane has fantastic long-term fundamentals. I believe the relative affordability compared to a Sydney or Melbourne puts Brisbane in a much better price point. As you can see today, only a $706,000 median price point compared to other major capital cities, which have, Sydney in a $1.5 million price point for a average property. So Brisbane's a much lower median price point and has some great growth opportunities. So I'm still very bullish on Brisbane on the long term. I don't believe the prices are too overheated that it's not a good time to buy, but it's totally up to you whether you're going to make that decision. So if you're doing it alone, hopefully you found this information useful and you drop a like on this video. Also, if you're looking for a Brisbane buyer's agent, head over to my website, purposeproperty.com.au, and you can book in a free strategy session there. Thanks for sticking around. Click this video over here for more things real estate, renovating, and financial freedom, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.